Yes, we're all gathered here today, not for a wedding, as that sounded like it was going to be, but for T2 Trainspotting, the return of Danny Boyle and all the guys for another round of Trainspotting. 20 years later. It's crazy, but we will get to it. We'll get to all of it. We're going to hear from Ewan McGregor, Robert Carlyle, Jonny Lee Miller, Ewan Bremner, director Danny Boyle, and writer of the original book, Irvin Welsh, after this clip.
Can't feel again, Mark. I need to detox the system.
Oh, Spud, detox the system. What does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's not getting it out of your body that's the problem, it's getting it out of your mind. You are an addict.
I think I haven't heard that 100,000 times, Mark. You got 12 more steps for me, comedy.
So, be addicted. Be addicted to something else.
Like you're running until I feel sick?
Yes! Or something else. You've got to channel it. You've got to control it. People try all sorts. Some people do boxing.
Boxing?
Well, it's just an example. I don't mean you should...
So what did you channel into?
Getting away. What I loved about the script so much is all of that nostalgia and all of that feeling about what that 90s were and how amazing it was to be young and carefree and just up for it and having a laugh. And that time is hugely romantic and attractive in a nostalgic way. But that's what our characters are feeling like as well. So it's all muddled up, and there's a nostalgia that the Trainspotting 2 embodies about that time. But there's a nostalgia within the characters about their youth in that time. And there's also John weaved in a nostalgia for the movie itself. So there's like throwbacks to the actual Trainspotting movie that, like, you think, how did he do that? I mean, how did he do that? So I think on all those levels it'll work.
It's about looking at the past, examining that, and then taking it on into the future and thinking, did this friendship, this school friendship, mean anything at all? Can it be taken somewhere else? Is there a possibility that there'll be a Trainspotting 3? Is there? Is there anything at the end of this to suggest that there'll be any more? There might be, there might not be. But it's certainly about reminiscing, and it's about understanding who these four guys are, who they were and who they became.
There's no point in making a sequel to Trainspotting unless you're examining some bigger issues, of which is, what's it like being older? What have you done? What's happened? And those larger implications, that I think that's the only interesting thing. If it's just a sort of the sequel to a caper, or who gets revenge and the money, I mean, I think it's boring, really. The only way you could make it interesting is to put people's lives in between it, 20 years, 21 years actually, but yeah, I don't think it would work otherwise.
I think the most important thing for myself is that we honour that to the best of our ability. And everything that I've seen up to this point makes me really hopeful and excited about that. So I really hope that we can honour the spirit of it.
The film isn't a purely narrative, fictional sequel. It's aware in the way that is very, very odd to explain. It's aware of the first film, and not just purely in terms of the fact that the characters had a narrative then. It's aware of the first film had a particular impact on people as a piece of style or a piece of culture, and that we use that in the film at different times. You can feel triggers being hopefully charged in you of memory.
It's going to be brilliant, and that's going to really upset a lot of people, because you kind of, when something is that big as Trainspotting was, and unexpectedly that big too, it's almost like you set yourself up for failure to come back. And it would be very easy to fail, but we're not actually going to do that, which is kind of quite subversive in a way. It's, and I think it's going to add to the legacy of Trainspotting, but I think you're going to see the same kind of the high action, high octane kind of set pieces, and it's going to be a white knuckle ride. But there's also going to be elements of pathos, and there's also going to be elements of reflection, which I think are really going to create a kind of an excitement and a sort of and a kind of sadness as well for what we've kind of lost.
You've just heard from Renton, Begbie, Sick Boy and Spud, better known as Ewan McGregor, Robert Carlyle, Jonny Lee Miller and Ewan Bremner, as well as director Danny Boyle and writer Irvin Welsh. Breathe. About T2 Trainspotting. 20, I suppose you can say 21 years now that it's been released, but 20 years
21.
in the making. Thank you. it finally hits our screens. This is the sequel that many have been waiting for a long, long time. Did it need to be made? Is it worthy sequel? We're going to answer all those questions now. T2 Trainspotting, but what's it all about first?
Well, indeed. So it's been 20 years on, and if you didn't know already, there was a sequel to the book of Trainspotting called Porno, and this is a mixture of both the original Trainspotting books and new material and the Porno book. It is not a direct sequel to Porno. To Trainspotting, sorry, it is not. It's not a Porno adaptation.
Yeah, it says in the credits of the film that it's based on Porno and Trainspotting.
It is its very own thing. So 20 years later, Renton's been living in Amsterdam all this time. He suddenly gets he has a heart sort of seizure, doesn't he?
Yeah, he has
sort
some
of
kind of heart
a
problem.
murmur. He has a heart murmur, and that sort of inspires him to come back to Edinburgh and mend old wounds. And I guess the best way to put it is that those old wounds really don't want to be mended.
No.
Because they are still extremely, extremely angry with the man who sodded off with their 16 grand of cash all those years ago. So Sick Boy's running his own pub. He's not doing well. He's still very angry. Beats him up with a pool cue within the first minute that they meet each other.
Yep.
Spud's unfortunately still a heroin addict. And Begbie's still a nutter. And he's been locked in prison for 20 years and he escapes.
Yeah.
And that kicks our story into gear when Sick Boy wants to get Ewan McGregor's character Renton back into business with him and sort of scam him like he did all those years ago in their sort of blackmail porn business, isn't it, with wealthy individuals.
Sick Boy blackmails wealthy people for money.
Yeah. With his friend, helper, girlfriend, Veronica.
Yes.
So yeah.
So we've set the scene.
Yeah.
First question. Did it need to be made? Is it gonna detract from the first film? Because people are worried, aren't they? People before the film very worried that this would sort of steal from the legacy of Trainspotting and make it a lesser product as a result. Categorically,
I think to be honest, that's the worry with any sequel to any film.
Yeah,
isn't it? There's always going to be the worry that you can't think of the first film or the second film or whatever the sequel, and you can never think of the film in the original light anymore. You're always going to think, 15 years or whatever later, they've done this in this film. So you're never going to be able to see that in the same light as it was. But I think if there was ever a sequel that was done in the best way possible, it could be this one. Because there is things to build on it, and there is content there that they can make a new legacy from, and I think it is ripe because it is so sort of grounded in a real world.
Yeah.
But still those fantastic elements threaded through, that there is plenty of stuff to make a new story from, and especially with the source material that they've got, there was enough stuff to make a new film.
Yeah. Joe, I know you're a big fan of the first one, as a lot of people are.
Yeah.
Were you worried at all? Worried going into it that it would not let you expectations?
I mean, not really. I can't remember a point where I was ever nervous, thinking, "Oh my goodness, it's gonna be bad or terrible." But then once I heard that, Danny Boyle was on board. Is it the original screenwriter that's on board as well?
John
Once everybody was coming back, I kind of, no worries, to be honest, and I think it's fine. I don't think it detracts from the first film. I think it's its own little thing, its own little entity. And
are you saying fine but no more?
I would say not. Obviously, it's not ever going to be up to scratch to the first one.
No,
which is natural because it is its own thing. But yeah, it's just nice to see. Really. Nothing extraordinary, but like the first one, but still just fine to see.
I think the two are very different films. I've even got written here totally different beast, because you can call them both beasts. This one never tries to be the first one. It never tries to, whereas so many sequels will try and replicate the same formula. 20 years past, you can't do the same tricks, you can't do the same, because that film revolutionised a lot of techniques. We said when we were talking about the original film just last week, of all the things that it did that was sort of seen as revolutionary, all those little shots, all those little tricks. This one has new tricks up its sleeve, though. This one never tries to replicate. It always has something different that the first one hasn't done, or other films of this time don't do. It still has that grungy look, though. It still has that sort of nice, filmy, grainy look. And it's still 185. Not that Cineworld would know, but...
but yeah, I think, anybody expecting it to be like a similar kind of style or content of the first one, you shouldn't go in expecting that. I mean, like it says, 20 years now, the characters have aged. It is a completely different form to that, but it has that kind of, it has aspects of memories from the first one. It has a kind of nostalgic sadness to it, which is I really enjoyed.
You mentioned that word, nostalgia.
Nostalgia.
We've seen La La Land this year with this heavy nostalgia, which got both criticism and acclaim for having that very nostalgic element. T2 has that same nostalgia, which people are kind of on the fence about, I think it's in the best possible way.
Yeah.
I think it's used in small doses. It has flashbacks to the
Yeah.
first film. It's not overtly nostalgia, though. It's definitely its own story.
It's
and
nostalgia
definitely its
done in
own
the right
thing.
way.
Absolutely.
To expand
Yeah.
and make the original film better, only increase the original film.
I think you can hear within the script that Boyle himself has a lot of anxieties about the film, and some of those lines sort of you can hear his voice saying, "I really hope we haven't messed this up for you. I really, I mean, the first film means a lot
he
to
said
him."
it right.
Yeah, and you can hear within the dialogue of the film that he cares very much for it and doesn't want this to be a failure. As he's said before, that there's a lot riding on this. But I think even if you don't like this film, it's so separate that you can just choose to ignore it. I think it doesn't harm the first film in any way at all.
No.
It's its own separate entity. It's just it's a nice little bonus, really. What I like as well, because the first film is so fast paced, and it has a lot of bells and whistles, and it moves along at a very frantic pace. This one has a slower pace, but so do the characters. So it's kind of, if you imagine that they did a film 10 years down the line from now, it would be even slower, because that's kind of the way the characters have gone. So I think it still manages to get that kind of pace that it needs to push through some of the heavier scenes in the film and some of the more frantic scenes. But more generally, it's that kind of where are they now feel, isn't it? It's not it's not trying to revolutionise, it's not trying to reinvent the wheel, it's just doing its own thing, and I like it so much for that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely got that same grungy Trainspotting feel to it. It's still got that potential to be an iconic soundtrack. Obviously, you don't know if anything's going to be iconic until time has passed. You can't just sort of go iconic. I mean, sometimes you can, but maybe not. In this case, you've got things like a reworked Born Slippy, which has been redone by Underworld, which I like. It's called Slow Slippy in the soundtrack.
Yeah, it is brilliant, very well. During Spud scenes often as well, which is a focus on Spud. Which is fascinating.
Okay, we'll get
Spud's
Spud.
boxing
We'll
scene.
get the Spud. Yeah, Raging Spud.
that had me hell.
God.
Hell.
Spud is given a more central role in this film. Seen as sort of a lesser character in the first one, he gives the film a lot of heart.
Yeah.
He gives the film a lot of much needed heart. When you've got Sick Boy, who's so very manipulative and not making his intentions clear to Renton, you at least have Spud, who's got good intentions and has real heart, and makes the film all the more, I don't know, likeable / lovable, because he's kind of like a little puppy, isn't he, Spud?
Yeah.
He's a poor little puppy. He's just been dragged down by these horrible people.
He's the kid that's getting in with the bad kids.
Yeah. But he still manages to take the film away from that nasty place and give it some heart. And I think, when Veronica comes in, she is very much a plot device, but she's a plot device to find the good in all of them. And I like that very much. I think it comes along at the right time for the characters as well. 20 years is a good amount of time to have passed.
Yeah.
Any less than this, and you'd sort of think it's too soon. Any more than this, they'd be a bit sad, wouldn't it? Because of the position they're all in. I don't know what you thought about that.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because I mean, obviously, so much time has passed, like 20 years. I mean, think we've had some certain films last year that 20 years have passed and haven't exactly been as good as the first ones, and it's been a long time. So the natural doubt is there, and I was worried that the characters might not be able to slip back into and recreate the magic. I only saw the first one before Christmas, so it's quite a new love for me. I do love it. The first one is absolutely magnificent,
revolutionary,
and to be honest, I think for extremely different reasons, this one is almost as good as the original, because it's a very different film. Like you say,
I can't compare them,
but it doesn't miss a beat. I think enough time has passed that the story really hits you hard, because it's a story about it's sort of the yin to the yang of Trainspotting, because Trainspotting is an electric film about it's about youth and about rebel. It's about going against the cause, and this film it's about nostalgia, it's about regret, it's about growing old, it's about moving away from the people you love, and how sometimes you can't mend wounds that are just too open and too gouged to ever be repaired. And I think because of that, it gives it an immense strength. The fact that, like you said, they've sort of reworked Lust for Life into an even angrier sort of Prodigy remix, and just it's a very, very different, slower film, but for that sort of the even handing of the nostalgia, it gives it a strength as a different film, and not just sort of an empty, hollow look what Trainspotting was and how good it was. It's its own entity while still being the natural DNA follow-on of Trainspotting.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because obviously Veronica's character as well, because they didn't go down that path a lot, but he even says to Sick Boy and Renton, all you talk about is the past.
Yeah, you're a tourist and you won't past. That's the line, yeah. Do you think she was a plot device?
I think
Some people have criticised.
I've got no problem with that as such. I think she was a good plot device, because you needed something in there to make the cogs turn in this kind of sequel. It needed to be in there, but I have no problem with it. We saw it in separate times. I saw it with my dad. You guys saw it together.
Yep.
What was the... Obviously, we can't forget that Trainspotting is so famous for its humour, and it's very dark Scottish humour. What was the reaction like in the cinema you were in? What was the ambience in the room? What was the sound?
The certain scene with the sick was quite well received.
Yeah.
But I was... Oh, God. That's the thing. While it is still quite a sad and sombre film, it's still got that key Trainspotting humour, and that scene in the Loyalist pub... Like
that was hilarious.
That was the Protestant pub. Like one of the funniest things I've seen in years. Like it was just hilarious. It's got that key humor running through it. It's still extremely funny. And that last 5 minutes is just... I love how they've got that focus and storytelling, making Spud a more central character, because he is the hero, really. Renton is not a nice man.
He's the only nice person in the whole...
Yeah, just the way it wraps itself up is just so like almost fairy tale like, and I guess that's just playing to
the final shot nearly got tears out of me.
It's just that whole 5 minutes with the Wolf Alice song is just it's incredible. That whole it all fits together so beautifully, like a real proper present put into plate.
So, was it worth the wait?
I mean, it was worth the 3 weeks that I've waited since I saw the first one.
Can you imagine those who have been waiting 20 years, they will think it was worth the
Well, it's
wait?
going to be a very different experience, isn't it? Because they have... Like, some people will the themes will resonate more, won't they? Because they might have seen the film in the theatre, and they might have grown up with it. So I'm very tempted to say... I mean, obviously, Mark Kermode commented on that, saying it was almost like geared towards people like him.
Yeah.
So... Yeah, different vantage points, but for what it was worth, I loved it.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it.
So, to recommend from all of us.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
T2 Trainspotting in cinemas now. If you have seen it, please get in touch. Tell us what you thought. At LRJ Film Show on Twitter. LRJ Film Show is the thing on Facebook as well. You can email liam.milburn@sparksunderland.com.
Most important point, though, Begbie's still an incredible nutter.
Begbie's still crazy.
Huge nutter.
That's your guarantee.
Yes. We've had a few bits of correspondence on T2 Trainspotting. Thank you for getting in touch if you have. We've had one in from Alex Scott. We're going to hear from him a bit later on, Hacksaw Ridge as well. At first, I kept comparing it to the original film back in '96, but with a second thought, the two films are very different for the right reasons. You feel really connected to the characters and their struggles are scarily realistic because some people do go through what they've been through. It's an outlook on awkward middle-aged friendships being kept alive by loyalty and the strong memories from when they were kids. To me, this is captured perfectly. There were bits when I was in bits, and there were moments of pure gold in terms of laughs. It's a great way to see the Trainspotting gang coping with the whirlwind lives that they live. Indeed, I agree. Scott Hasty, T2 is ultimate nostalgia, and I know he's himself from Scotland, Scott, so I know he had a lot of longing memories for Trainspotting and was hoping this was going to be very good. He says Boyle handled this with lots of care and thankfully eased any worries anybody had. Paul Barclay, T2 Trainspotting was fantastic, didn't hurt the legacy of the original film in any way, and had a justified reason to exist. It deals with memory and whether you've wasted your life. Have we wasted our lives?
Probably.
Yeah.
Every performance is great, but special mention must go to Ewan Bremner. It was nice to see Spud become such a major part. That is very true indeed. Emma Horton, our flatmate, hello. She said Trainspotting 2 was very good. It was just as good as the first one, I thought. Really appreciate the little flashbacks as well. Nice reminder of who the people were, and in caps, loved it. Cool. Lauren Maggiore says, very funny, also full of tunes. That's referring to La La Land, which we'll get to shortly. Still as terrified as Begbie as I was in the first film. It's safe to say he's maybe more terrifying in this new one.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. He's still a nutter.
Yeah.
Still nuts.
And you still feel sorry for him. That's a weird thing. You actually feel sorry for him.
That's the magic of Danny Boyle, isn't it? And I suppose Irvin Welsh as well.
Yeah.
And finally, Dan Heppel says, I could talk about T2 for days, but in short, not as good as the original. But that's kind of the point of the film. It delves into nostalgia and is a solid film. Would recommend and watch again. And I've got one from Alex Miller as well, but I haven't got it open up. So we'll get to it in the... no, we'll do it now, but I'll pause it. I've found Alex's review. He says, Trainspotting 2, in my opinion, was an enjoyable film and a delightful reflection of the film from 20 years ago. Whilst it does provide some of the comedy the first film perfected, it doesn't live up to what the original is. However, it was the best possible sequel we could get, as I believe it could never outdo its predecessor, but is still an enjoyable watch nevertheless. The original cast and crew make the film feel reminiscent of the original, yet deliver new material given the film its fresh content instead of trying too much to rely solely on deja vu of the original. Overall, a good film and the best sequel we could have hoped for, even if it can't beat its fresh, young and lovable original. It's a nice look back at the past. Overall, 7 out of 10. We haven't given scores, we don't normally give scores, but what would you give?
9.
I would say that as well. Joe?
Putting it